The last exercise in this lesson is called the organic intersections. And it can actually be quite a bit of fun. Basically what we do is we take a bunch of the organic forms from earlier in the lesson and we draw them as though they've been piled on top of each other. The idea here is that we want to capture the sense that they are kind of like these solid, lumpy water balloons that are filled with water, so that if you kind of drop them on top of each other, they'll sag where their weight is not supported, and they'll kind of try and wrap around whatever they're resting on top of. And so I strongly insist that you keep these forms as simple as possible. I've seen people try and do some weird, like, wobbly things, which is a bad idea, largely because forms that are simple are the ones that will maintain their solidity more successfully. And so when you try and make the basic shape that you're constructing a form from complex, it's not going to maintain the same kind of solidity. Instead, what you want to do is you want to start out simple and then add additional simple forms to it to make it more complex later on. But that's really a matter of the later lessons, lesson 3 and onwards, where we deal with construction. So we will start out this exercise by just drawing out a simple sausage form. And then we want to make sure that it carries volume. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the organic forms with contour curves. That was terrible. And then once that's done, I want to just draw another form on top of it. And for the most part, I'm really only just drawing, another shape onto there. And then I start to think about, well, how is this form going to interact with 3D space? Keep in mind that I'm drawing through these forms as needed because I really want to focus on how they sit in space. I don't want to cut out things unnecessarily too early. So let's try another one. And these poles here they're just helpful in making sure that you know which side is facing where. Let's just add one more. Ugh. So we have a stack of forms now. But obviously we don't kind of get the feeling that they're overlapping each other and whatever, so we want to start applying line weight and a few simple cast shadows to really sell the illusion that they are on top of each other. So this one actually, right here, there's a bit of an issue where it's not quite clear where it transitions from being behind and then on top, but we can try and fix that a little bit. And remember what I've said before about line weight, that it is something that we apply locally to a section of a line, not to the entirety of it. And so adding a little bit of a cast shadow can really help sell this, because our line weight is essentially, in a lot of ways, kind of like a cast shadow, but it isn't necessarily always being cast onto something. So we can get the same effect as a cast shadow, but when you do have another surface that you can cast a shadow down onto, it can help a lot. But what you have to keep in mind is that a cast shadow will always wrap around the form that it's being cast onto. And don't, if you have a cast shadow, don't try and fill it like this, because it results in a lot of like slivers of white against a sea of black, and that tends to become very distracting visually. So if you can, try and fill it in as solidly as possible. And if you have difficulty with that with the pen that you're using, a brush pen can come in very handy. And you can even cast a shadow on the ground itself. Notice how when I added line weight there, I kind of lost the original line, but I did not slow down. It's still more important that you remain confident and smooth in your stroke. So if you do end up separating from the line that you're trying to follow, it's not a super big deal. You can also notice how here the cast shadow kind of dips away from the form more than it does over here. That's because the surface that it's being cast onto is actually turning away from the form. So that shadow gets a little bit more extended. And I'm not really preoccupied with like where my light source is. I'm more focused on just straight down, just placing these shapes underneath the form to kind of separate them and keep them from getting very mixed up with each other. Because when we have all the lines that we get from drawing through things, it's a lot to sort through. So that's why we're applying this, so that we can structure our drawing and build a sort of visual hierarchy. So you can pile on more and more of these forms if you have the space, but just at the end you want to focus on exactly how they're overlapping with each other and trying to sell that illusion. And more than anything, you really want to make sure that you have an understanding in your head of how they're kind of wrapping around each other. And this will come in quite handy when in the future you want to try and like take an organic form and wrap it around another one, like when you're adding muscles onto an animal. It can be very useful. These sausage forms also end up being at the very core of a lot of our constructions in later lessons, so getting a hang of them now can be very useful. And that's pretty much it. So give the exercise a try, see how it goes, and have some fun with it.